Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, we're going to talk about 5 asteroids, including one the size of a sports stadium expected to pass near Earth. And this is starting today. I'm actually recording this on Wednesday night, but I'm going to post it on Thursday morning. And so this begins today. And I just saw a notification for this on my phone earlier today, and I wanted to do this as soon as possible. Why should we care about this? Well, the reason why I think is when we look at Joseph Smith and what he said about the sign of the Son of Man, we're going to read all the different versions of that, and I'll show you what I mean in case you don't know. I'm not saying that this is the sign of the Son of Man. I have a spreadsheet where I'm keeping track of all sorts of stuff. This is my spreadsheet called Signs, Comets, Meteors, and Asteroids, because Joseph Smith said that when the sign of the Son of Man first appears, the people of the world, scientists and so forth, are going to think that it's an asteroid or a comet or a planet or something like that. So we're going to go over the quotes describing the sign of the Son of Man. But I also had a very interesting thought where you might be like, well, we have really good telescopes and we're able to see these things and tell, look, it's not Christ. It's not the hosts of heaven coming. It's a rock. It's clearly a rock. Or it's a comet. It's clearly a comet. We can see the tail, and that's not anything other than something that we already know. Well, I'm going to propose something, and I've kind of talked about this idea before, but now I have more reason to believe that when we see things like this, asteroids, comets, meteors, even planets, that there are things there that we cannot see with our natural eyes. There's reason to believe that. I'm gonna walk you through the process, but I haven't put it together in this way up until now. So just that'll be the second half of the video. Let's first look and see what's going on with these asteroids. Okay, and then we'll go into the Joseph Smith quotes about the sign of the Son of Man, and then we'll talk about the unseen sphere, dimension, world, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so you can see here, these are the 5 new asteroids that I'm putting on my tracker. It stands out to me because I was already tracking other asteroids that have passed by Earth at very interesting times. The first was a set of 3 asteroids back on September 20th, 2022. 3 of them, they passed by Earth on Rosh Hashanah. Okay, that's the Jewish New Year. It's one of the 2 high holy days, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Those are the high holy days. Between them are the 10 days of awe. And so it happened on that day, on the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. So that's interesting. What happened was all 3 of these flew by. One of them was especially close. Okay, so take note of that. And then just a couple months later, on Christmas, which that year, it also happened to be the 8th day of Hanukkah, or in other words, the last day of lighting the candles. So those 2 things coincided. And also there was a octet, meaning 8, planetary parade that was going on that day. And you have these 3 large asteroids that pass by Earth. I need to actually fix this. 3, well, the way that they described it in the article is giant. So 3 giant asteroids pass by Earth on Christmas, the 8th day of Hanukkah, as there's an octet planetary parade, as they call it. So that's kind of weird. And if you think about it, with the planetary alignment, it's like having a menorah in the sky of 8 planets. That's if you count the moon. That's what the article said. That's why they were counting it as 8 or calling it an octet. Or you could count Earth. So you choose the moon or Earth. But in the sky, you essentially had 8 celestial lights that were lining up at the same time. And it was the 8th day of Hanukkah. Okay, and then fast forward to 2023. On September 25th, which just happened to be Yom Kippur, or the Day of Atonement, there were another 3 asteroids that passed by Earth. And just like the first set, one of them flew especially close. So it's weird. So you see why when I saw this article of 5 asteroids passing by Earth, that piqued my interest. I think I didn't finish. Let's see. I'm going to put Day of Atonement, comma, Yom Kippur. Let's do it like that. That looks better. Also, let's note this as well. On October 3rd, there was an asteroid, just a single asteroid, that passed by Earth, and it was on the 4th day of Sukkot, which is the Feast of Tabernacles. So that's interesting too. That's why I have these highlighted in red, is because all these happened on Jewish holy days, and in this case, Christmas as well. Now, these 5, which is starting today, if you look at the Hebrew calendar, there are no special days that coincide with these. So 2 of them are going to pass by Earth today. 2024 BY and 2003 BM4. And then on Friday, we're going to have 2008 OS7. And then Sunday, 2024 AU4. I'm so sorry. 2024 AU4. And then on Tuesday, 2007 EG. Okay, and that's how it's going to go. And they're varying sizes: house size, airplane size, the size of a sports stadium. So the big one is going to be, okay, wait. So tomorrow, okay, today is Thursday. So Friday is going to be the size of a sports stadium, that asteroid. And then after that, building size, and after that, airplane size again. Okay. So let's just take note of that. I didn't find any other, interesting details. If you can think of something, if you have some realization, then put it in the comments below. In this article, on this article by New York Post, at the end, it talks about the asteroid Apophis. This is something that I'm already tracking. I've already done a video about this. Asteroid Apophis, or 99942 Apophis. That's going to make its closest approach to Earth on the 13th of April, 2029. So I'm not really looking that far forward. I'm going to track it on my tracker, but I'm not really too concerned or really thinking about this at this time. If we're still around by 2029, then I'll probably have much greater interest in it. But for now, I'm just taking note of it. But at the end of this article, it says, in December, NASA launched OSIRIS-APEX to study Apophis, the so-called god of chaos. That's like the Egyptian god of chaos asteroid. A massive rock measuring some 370 yards across, which is expected to fly by the planet at an unthinkably close 20,000 miles away in 2029. You compare that to these 5. I'm so sorry. I'm going to go to the VA, okay? I'm going to go to the VA, see my primary care. I'll get this checked out. Just hold your horses. It may take a while, but I'm going to do it, okay? So anyway, you look at these other asteroids, and we're looking at distances like 2.06 million miles, 1.57 million miles, 3.8 million miles. So we're talking about millions of miles compared to just 20,000 miles with Apophis. So let's just keep that in mind. Okay, so now let's look at what Joseph Smith said about the sign of the Son of Man. And we have a few different accounts. Okay, this one is from the Words of Joseph Smith, page 181. Read Matthew 24, 24th chapter, and all the prophets. He says, then shall they see the sign of the coming of the Son of Man. And by the way, if there's misspellings in here, it's because that's how it was originally written. It's not because I misspelled it. I copied and pasted. He says, then shall they see the sign of the coming of the Son of Man in the clouds of heaven. How are we to see it? Answer, as the lighting up of the morning, of the dawning of the morning cometh from the east and shineth unto the west, so also is the coming of the Son of Man. The dawning of the morning makes its appearance in the east and moves along gradually. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be. It will be small at its first appearance and gradually becomes larger until every eye shall see it. Shall the saints understand it? Oh, yes. Paul says so. Shall the wicked understand? Oh, no. They attribute it to a natural cause. They will probably suppose it is two great comets coming in contact with each other. It will be small at first and will grow larger and larger until it will be all in a blaze so that every eye shall see it. Okay. So I don't know if the reason why it starts out small is because it's approaching Earth from outside Earth's orbit, and so it looks like it's getting larger and larger. I don't know what that has to do with, but that's kind of like what I picture in my mind, and that would make sense why the wicked would look at it and be like, "Oh, it's a comet heading our way. It's a unknown class of comet or asteroid or something like that." Okay, let's move on to this one. This is from Scriptural Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith, page 280. The editor, as well as some others, thinks that Joe Smith has met his match at last because Mr. Redding thinks that he has seen the sign of the Son of Man. But I shall use my right and declare that, notwithstanding Mr. Redding may have seen a wonderful appearance in the clouds one morning about sunrise, which is nothing very uncommon in the winter season, he has not seen the sign of the Son of Man, as foretold by Jesus. Neither has any man, nor will any man, until after the sun shall have been darkened, and the moon bathed in blood. For the Lord hath not shown me any such sign, and as the prophet saith, so it must be. Surely the Lord God will do nothing, but he revealeth his secret unto his servants, the prophets. See Amos 3:7. Therefore, hear this, O earth, the Lord will not come to reign over the righteous in this world in 1843, nor until everything for the bridegroom is ready. So here he mentions the fact that the sun has to be darkened, the moon bathed in blood, and we've done some recent videos about that. It does seem that at the very, very end, like at the time of the earthquake, you're going to have like a major event where this happens. And what we've studied, what we studied is that it seems that the sun refuses to shine his light in the moon because of the brightness of Christ coming with all the resurrected saints. Also, Bruce R. McConkie talked about the earthquake. It's, violent action makes it seem like the stars are falling. So I don't know. We also know that Gordon B. Hinckley in the October 2001 General Conference said that Joel chapter 2 verses 28 to 32 has been fulfilled, and that verse talks about the sun being darkened and the moon turning into blood. So I don't know. It seems like Joseph Smith is talking about the final one. I don't know. I'm still just going to keep an open mind, and we'll just see how it actually plays out. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Judah must return, Jerusalem must be rebuilt, and the temple and water come out from under the temple. Again, I'm not going to go into this for the millionth time. There's many different ways that this could already have happened or soon happen. We've talked about the BYU Jerusalem Center. We've talked about the Dome on the Rock. We've talked about many different outside of the box ways that this could happen, where we may be surprised and be like, oh, that was actually a temple in waiting. I know a lot of you don't subscribe to that, but that's okay. We'll just see what happens. And we've covered things with the Dead Sea and water going to the Dead Sea. Just do a search on my channel for Dead Sea and it'll come up. Okay. And the waters of the Dead Sea be healed. It will take some time to rebuild the walls of the city and the temple, and all this must be done before the Son of Man will make his appearance. There will be wars and rumors of wars, signs in the heavens above and on the earth beneath, the sun turned into darkness and the moon to blood, earthquakes in diverse places, the seas heaving beyond their bounds. Then will appear one grand sign of the Son of Man in heaven. But what will the world do? They will say it is a planet, a comet, etc. But the Son of Man will come as the sign of the coming of the Son of Man, which will be as the light of the morning cometh out of the east. So there he says, and I don't know how else to read this. I feel like this is pretty plain. He says, the Son of Man will come as the sign of the coming of the Son of Man. And whenever you use the scripture citation index and look for general conference talks, or you find other places that talk about the sign of the Son of Man, they always seem to associate it with Christ himself and him coming in his glory with the hosts of heaven, all the quickened and caught up saints that are alive and all the resurrected saints from past ages. And it seems like that is what it is. But anyway, I'll skip this one. Excuse me. And then let's finish off with this. Okay. Thus, Jesus on Olivet spoke of the gospel of the kingdom being preached in all the world in the last days, and of a second abomination of desolation being fulfilled. Then, using language that establishes a definite time frame that sets forth an order of chronology, he said, and immediately after the tribulation of those days, the plagues and the wars and abominable desolation that shall destroy again the city of Jerusalem in the final great war. The sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. He is speaking thus of the final great signs, the wonders and marvels that are yet to be, the final signs that shall be shown forth in heaven and on earth. And then comes this word. And as I said before, after the tribulation of those days, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken, with some deliberation and by emphasis born of repetition, he is identifying the time frame. Then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the sign of man coming, they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So right there, that seems to say it too, but Bruce R. McConkie says, the sign of the coming of the Son of Man, what is it? We do not know. Our revelation says simply, and immediately there shall appear a great sign in heaven, and all people shall see it together. Later on, he reads the quote that we just read, and then he says, so he talks about Amos 3:7, and then says, indicating that when the sign is given, the Lord's servants, the prophets, including all the faithful saints, will know it for what it is, and thus be made aware that the long-expected day has arrived. Yeah, we'll just end right there. So, in all likelihood, what's happening over the next few days probably isn't the sign of the Son of Man, but I'm not going to put any restrictions on it. We may come to find out like, oh, that's how this prophecy happened and how that prophecy happened. And it all happen the way that I thought. I think that's a smart way to go about it rather than trying to dictate the future. Just be flexible. And if it's not, then maybe it's a sign of something that's going to happen soon or in the future. So let's just take note of it. 5 asteroids passing by Earth. I don't know how often that happens, but I'm going to try and figure it out as I keep track of these things. Okay, so let's start talking about when this happens. When we see the sign of the Son of Man, if it is Christ, if it's him, the city of Enoch, and then later we get caught up to meet with them there, then it may be that you have all these objects in space. You have planets, you have stars, you have comets and asteroids, and it may be that there are things there that we cannot see. These things, in my mind, in all likelihood, are multi-dimensional objects, meaning that in our fallen state, this telestial condition in which we are, it looks like a big ball of fire, a fusion reaction taking place. It looks like just a big nuclear explosion via nuclear fusion. The moon, just a big, a chunk of rock, and all the rest of it. But if we were to ascend to a higher plane, say a terrestrial order, like what's going to happen when we become quickened, once the earth becomes a paradisiacal world and everything is now in a terrestrial condition, maybe at that point we will be able to see those things that we can't see now. And this is where I show you that there's some reason to believe that. Okay, so first we'll go to Millennial Messiah, Bruce R. McConkie. This is page 644. And he's talking about translated beings. And at this part, he's talking about people who have already been translated. People like the three Nephites and John. Okay, he's not talking about us during the millennium. There's going to be some difference between that type of translation and these people who have already been translated. He says, some mortals have been translated. In this state, they are not subject to sorrow or to disease or to death. No longer does blood, the life-giving element of our present mortality, flow in their veins. Procreation ceases. If they then had children, their offspring would be denied immortal probation, which all worthy spirits must receive in due course. Now, just stop right here. He's talking about people like the three Nephites in John, okay? They lived their lives, their mortal lives. They had children. They were married. Undoubtedly, they were married. But then they have a special mission to perform where they stick around until the second coming. So it's not like the three Nephites in John are going to continue having children for all that time, for like a couple thousand years. So they don't procreate during that time. But you and me, supposing that we make it to the millennium, we will be translated, but we will be able to procreate. And he says it in just a minute here. So all translated beings, okay, sorry. I'm going too far ahead. Okay, they have power to move and live in both a mortal and unseen sphere. And that's basically all we know. We don't know what that sphere is. We don't know if like that's the spirit world. I don't know if translated beings can walk around, operate, see what's happening in the spirit world, or if it's some other sphere that we don't know about. Okay? And this is recorded in the scriptures. I'll show you the scripture in just a minute. He's not just making this up. They have power to move and live in both a mortal and an unseen sphere. Okay, all translated beings undergo another change in their bodies when they gain full immortality. This change is the equivalent of a resurrection. All mortals after death are also resurrected. In the resurrected state, they are immortal and eternal in nature, and those among them who are privileged to live in the family unit have spirit children. So those are exalted beings in the celestial kingdom. Millennial man will live in a state akin to translation. His body will be changed so that it is no longer subject to disease or death as we know it, although he will be changed in the twinkling of an eye to full immortality when he is 100 years of age. He will, however, have children. Okay? So people during the millennium will have children. And mortal life of a millennial kind will continue. We shall speak more particularly of this shortly. So we're going to end there. I just want to focus on the fact that if the three Nephites and John and others, like the city of Enoch, before the time of Christ, because he talks about the fact that anyone that was translated before the time of Christ was translated because they could not be resurrected. The resurrection hadn't happened at that point. But once it had, they went from their translated state into being resurrected. So that would include the city of Enoch and his people, Melchizedek and his people, because a lot of them, if not all of them, were also translated. Elijah, Moses, people like that. Okay. So anyway, at the very least, these people, when they were in a translated state, it appears that they could go back and forth between the seen and the unseen. If we go to 3 Nephi 28, verse 30, This is where Christ is, he's with the three Nephites and giving them the ability to, or, translating them. In verse 30, it says, and they are as the angels of God, and if they shall pray unto the Father in the name of Jesus, they can show themselves unto whatsoever man it seemeth them good. So this verse seems to indicate that their default setting is unseen, and that if they want to show themselves to somebody in mortality, they can't just do it if they want to. They have to pray to the Father first in the name of Jesus and then get that approval. And then they'll appear, to us in mortality. So again, it begs the question, where are they if they're not here among us all the time? Well, they're in an unseen mode. I don't know if that just means that they're invisible, but it seems like I said, they're probably something similar to the spirit world. Maybe it includes the spirit world. Maybe it includes some other sphere that we just don't know of at this time, like a terrestrial sphere, not glory sphere. Let's move on. Let's read what Joseph Smith said. The Doctrine of Translation. Now, the doctrine of translation is a power which belongs to this priesthood. There are many things which belong to the powers of the priesthood and the keys thereof that have been kept hid from before the foundation of the world. They are hid from the wise and prudent to be revealed in the last times. Many have supposed that the doctrine of translation was a doctrine whereby men were taken immediately into the presence of God and into eternal fullness, but this is mistaken. This is a mistaken idea. Their place of habitation, now listen to this, and I'm thinking that this is, again, well, he's saying it. Their place of habitation is that of the terrestrial order, and a place prepared for such characters. So, spirit world, I don't know, maybe they can appear there, but it does seem that there's a separate sphere. Aside from the spirit world, aside from our sphere, there's this terrestrial sphere, this terrestrial habitation. Their place of habitation is that of the terrestrial order and a place prepared for such characters. He held in reserve to be ministering angels unto many planets, and who as yet have not entered into so great a fullness as those who are resurrected from the dead. Others were tortured, quote, others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. See Hebrews 11:35. Okay, so it seems to me that once you and I are quickened and we're now in a terrestrial condition, living in a terrestrial condition world, a paradisiacal world, maybe we'll start to see things in space that we didn't know were there. When we're talking about, let's go to the scriptures now to talk about this. In Isaiah 34:4, it says, and all the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll. And all their host shall fall down as the leaf falleth off from the vine, and as a falling fig from the fig tree. I'm not exactly sure. It says, the second coming will be a day of vengeance and judgment. Excuse me. The indignation of the Lord will be upon all nations. His sword will fall upon the world. So it seems that what's being described here is whatever was unseen before will then be seen. It talks about the heavens being rolled together as a scroll, and I don't know if that's a physical event of some kind. Orson Pratt talked about it, and I think others where they're like, in your classroom, how you have the big maps and how they roll up or you pull them down to unfold them. That's what's going to happen, to the heavens. And so I don't know if there's something like that physically happens, or if what this means is simply Now that we're quickened, we can see the things that were not there before. That would make a whole lot of sense to me. We're quickened, we look up, and holy cow, there is an entire army of people up there. And then you go up to meet them as you're caught up. I could be wrong. Revelation 6, and the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And then D&C 8895. And there shall be silence in heaven for the space of half an hour, and immediately after shall the curtain of heaven be unfolded as a scroll is unfolded after it is rolled up, and the face of the Lord shall be unveiled. I should read the next verse too. And the saints that are upon the earth who are alive shall be quickened and be caught up to meet him. So it's just something interesting to think about. There are a couple more things I want to read. Let's go to Brigham Young, Journal of Discourses, Volume 13. And this is on page 270. All right, he says, I will tell you who the real fanatics are. They are they who adopt false principles and ideas as facts and try to establish a superstructure upon a false foundation. They are the fanatics, and however ardent and zealous they may be, they may reason or argue on false premises till doomsday, and the result will be false. If our religion is of this character, we want to know it. We would like to find a philosopher who can prove it to us. We are called ignorant, so we are. But of what? Are not all ignorant? I rather think so. Who can tell us of the inhabitants? Okay, I should have highlighted this. Who can tell us of the inhabitants of this small planet that shines of an evening called the moon? Okay. So, taking into account what we've been studying so far, and I'm not saying that this is doctrine, but some people will read this and be like, oh, he is so, such a product of his time. He thought that there were aliens on the moon and blah, blah, blah. I'm not so sure. Look, whenever a prophet says something, I do not start to pick it apart and call him a product of his time, or it's just his opinion or whatever. I'm not in a position to do that, and neither are you. Other prophets are, other apostles are, but not you and me. And I haven't seen anybody refute this. And I don't think that he's talking about aliens. If I were to guess, I think he's referring to that terrestrial sphere, right? The terrestrial sphere. It would make sense to me that Elijah, Moses, the city of Enoch, they had to go somewhere. We're told that they're not here on earth, so where are they? They're not in the presence of God. That's what Joseph Smith just said. They're not in the presence of God. They're in a terrestrial sphere, so where is it? Maybe it's the moon. Maybe the moon has more use than just being for times and seasons and tidal waves and stuff like that. Maybe it's an actual place where beings go that cannot be seen. And, a lot of times the moon is likened to the terrestrial kingdom, right? We use the stars and then the moon, and then the sun is compared to the celestial kingdom. It makes sense to me. It makes me wonder what would happen if we could see the terrestrial sphere. If we looked up to the moon, maybe it would look just like our own world, and we just can't see it. Anyway, continuing, he says, when we view its face, we may see what is termed the man in the moon, and what some philosophers declare are the shadows of mountains. But these sayings are very vague and amount to nothing. And when you inquire about the inhabitants of that sphere, you find that the most learned are as ignorant in regard to them as the most ignorant of their fellows. So it is with regard to the inhabitants of the sun. Dang it, what was I thinking when I was preparing this? Let me highlight that too. The inhabitants of the sun. Do you think it is inhabited? I rather think it is. Do you think there is any life there? No question of it. Now, let's think about that. We know that there are people that have been resurrected. In fact, anybody that's been resurrected so far from our world has been resurrected to the celestial glory. Bruce R. McConkie talked about that. We know that there's an order to the resurrection. First, Christ was the very first, and then you had a number of people that were resurrected at his time. There's probably been more since then. We don't know, but we know that the first resurrection, the bulk of it takes place at the beginning of the millennium, or at the time of the second coming. Then later on in the millennium, anyone who is worthy of the terrestrial kingdom, then they get resurrected. And then at the very end, after the millennium and before the world becomes celestialized, then you have the resurrection of the telestials. And then after that, the sons of perdition. So we have already people that are resurrected to a celestial glory. Where do they go? And, one of the goals is to return into the presence of the Father. So maybe they go back to where he is. Maybe they go to Kolob. Maybe they go to some other world. I don't know. But it would also make a lot of sense to me if they stayed here in our solar system and went to the sun. It makes a lot of sense to me. Let's continue and see what he says. No question of it. It was not made in vain. It was made to give light to those who dwell upon it and to other planets. To those that dwell upon it, the sun, and to other planets like Earth. And so will this Earth when it's celestialized. Every planet in its first rude organic state receives not the glory of God upon it, but is opaque. But when celestialized, every planet that God brings into existence is a body of light, but not till then. So the implications of this are pretty wild, and it would call into question our current understanding of astronomy, and I'm okay with that. Unless we have a time machine and we can go back to whenever the sun was formed, or move into the future and see, or whatever. I realize that we have telescopes, we can see stellar nurseries, but I don't know that we've actually in real time seen a star actually ignite. Maybe we have. I don't know. Let me know if we have. But maybe this whole process of stars and so forth, maybe it's a lot different than what we actually realize. And I think the same holds true for time. We can get really complicated, and I've done other videos exploring different ideas. But all I mean to show is that Brigham Young believes that there's life on the moon and on the sun. I don't think he's talking about aliens. I think he's talking about translated beings and resurrected beings. And it makes perfect sense to me. Again, remember, we're talking about this in the context of the sign of the Son of Man, or as we track these different objects that are, coming close to Earth. In fact, in April, during the eclipse, if you're in the path of totality, you should be able to see with the naked eye, but you may need binoculars. You should be able to see comet 12P Pons Brooks. And then it's going to reach its closest point to the sun on the 21st of April, and then it's going to become the closest to Earth on the 24th of June. So this is one to just be aware of, and all the rest of them too. Then we have later this year on the 13th of October, C 2023 A3, Suchinshan Atlas, and its closest approach is going to be the day after the Day of Atonement, otherwise known as Yom Kippur. So that's interesting. We talked about asteroid Apophis in 2029, and that's what we have coming up. So in my mind, any one of these at any time could reveal themselves as the sign of the Son of Man. They could reveal themselves as Christ coming with the hosts of heaven and whatever. You never know. The veil, whatever you want to call it, could be lifted from our eyes. We could be quickened and suddenly able to see things that we weren't able to see before. And we'll be like, well, that is not a comet. That is not an asteroid. There are people there. This is a group of people. It's an object that's coming to us. So it's interesting to think about. Also, I just want to point this out. When we go to the Pearl of Great Price, everybody knows this. This is facsimile 2 from the Book of Abraham. And you have all sorts of things on here. Egyptian, style pictures and writing and stuff. And it talks about these different planets that we know are out there. And so, for example, figure 1, Kolob. Okay, this right here. This thing right there. Kolob, signifying the first creation, nearest to the celestial or the residence of God. First in government, the last pertaining to the measurement of time, the measurement according to celestial time, which celestial time signifies 1 day to a cubit. 1 day in Kolob is equal to 1,000 years according to the measurement of this earth, which is called by the Egyptians Ja-O-A. Figure 2, where is it? Right up here. This guy with the 2 faces looking either way, which usually, what I've noticed in other places is that usually that's referring to looking to the past and to the future, as though you're like above time. Figure 2 stands next to Kolob, called by the Egyptians Oli-Blish, which is the next grand governing creation, near to the celestial or the place where God resides, holding the key of power also pertaining to other planets, as revealed from God to Abraham, as he offered sacrifice upon an altar which he had built unto the Lord. Now, I don't know why it was necessary for this to be revealed to Abraham. The Lord doesn't just do things arbitrarily. I would think that there'd be some kind of use for that. Maybe it's just for us to know that there is much, much more to this universe and to God's creations than what we realize. We're here on our world with our sun and the other planets and moons in the solar system, but it's so much bigger than that. There's like this order of planets and stars. Let's read some more. Figure 5. It's this right here, this cow or ox. Figure 5 is called in Egyptian Inish Go-Ondash, which is one of the governing planets also, and is said by the Egyptians to be the sun. Interesting, excuse me. Interesting how they're saying it's a planet, but they're calling it also the sun. It kind of goes along with what Brigham Young said. And to borrow its light from Kolob through the medium of Ka Van Rash, which is the grand key, or in other words, the governing power, which governs 15 other fixed planets or stars. As also Floeis, or the moon, the earth and the sun in their annual revolutions. This planet receives its power through the medium of Kli Flos Is Es, or Ha Kokaubim. And I did a video a long time ago. This essentially is, you can translate this as the stars in Hebrew. Ha is the, and then Kokaubim is stars. Singular is, it's like Kokau or something like that. Coco. Ha Kokaubim. The I am is plural, the stars. The stars represented by numbers 22 and 23 receive light from the revolutions of Kolob. So I don't know if there's any more use to this other than just letting us know just how grand everything is, and that we're not alone. And it seems that there are planets and different powers and things that are over our star, the sun, and us, and the moon. So, and I'm sure that we'll learn a lot more about that in the millennium, especially if I'm right, if we can now with our eyes see more than what we knew was there. It may be pretty incredible, and we may learn a lot more. So it's exciting to think about. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, Like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.